Hi, good morning everyone. Hope your week is off to a good start. I think I'm gonna have a pretty short and quick video this week because this weekend I am going to be going to Richmond to visit my dad, and I really would just want to focus on spending time with him rather than trying to come up with video content. But I did want to pause this morning. Today's Monday the 15th. Just to share with you an item that I am checking off my bucket list challenge for today, or my bucket list challenge for 2026. I'm checking it off today because I'm voting. DC is electing a new mayor this fall, and we have our primary happening tomorrow. So I have filled out my ballot to vote for my choice for mayor and several other positions within DC's local government. And I'm just going to run outside and drop this ballot in the mailbox, and then I will have voted. And I just want to encourage everybody to participate in your local elections whenever possible. Like, you know, we all get excited about the general election, or to a lesser extent the midterms, but your local elections are also super important to the quality of life in your community. So just spend the time to do some research on your local candidates and vote in those local elections as you are able to. That's all for now. Just wanted to mention that I was voting today. So that's another thing I can check off my bucket list challenge. Hi, good morning everyone. At first I was going to make this a real short video because, like I said earlier, I'm going to Richmond and I'm going to visit my dad this weekend. Today is actually Friday, so I am going to head out right after making this recording and head towards Richmond. But I decided I wanted to post a video that was longer than like 2 minutes. A few weeks ago, I posted a video about my summer reading list, which is all American literature all the time this year for the semi-quincentennial. But I thought that it might be nice and potentially inspiring for other people's summer reading lists for me to share some ideas for books for your bucket list. So that's what I'm going to do here, and I'm going to try and go fairly quickly because I have a lot of ideas. If you want to read more, or if you want to get back into reading, or you just have kind of a vague general sense that, you know, you want to have some books on your bucket list, but you don't really have a sense of where you want to start, I have some ideas. Ideas for great books to put on your bucket list, or for kind of approaches to making a list of books. So let's get right into it. I have so many ideas for you, really. This video could end up being actually quite long. Obviously, you can just go online and search for a list of the great books, whatever that means. You know, it's certainly up for debate what the great books really means, and people have a lot of opinions about it. There are lots of different lists out there, but that's one approach to get started, is to just look for a list of the great books. I obviously have opinions myself. So something that I have a few genre ideas and a few like categories of book that I think personally that everybody should give a shot at least once in their life. So we'll start with an intimidatingly long book. The obvious choice for this is War and Peace. I feel like War and Peace is on a lot of people's reading bucket lists. It's on mine too. I have actually attempted War and Peace a few times and only ever made it about halfway through. So someday I gotta just buckle down and finish it. Then also, in terms of genres, personally, I think everybody should try at least once in their life a classic stream of consciousness novel. The one I would recommend as like an entry point if you find this narrative mode difficult, is Mrs. Dalloway. It's only like 200 pages, so it's not that long, and I think it's relatively accessible. I was assigned to read this in college, and I have since reread it, and I really like it. And then if you want to go crazy and tackle something really difficult, you can always pick up Ulysses by James Joyce. Paul has read this. I have not, but it's on my list. I'm just going to make a plug for one of my personal favorite genres, and that is, I think everyone should read at least one Gothic novel in their lifetime. And I have 6 recommendations here for you, because I'm, like I said, a real enthusiast of this genre. So if you want something short and quick and easy, The Turn of the Screw by Henry James is a great Gothic piece. It's really more of a novella than a novel. I love also The Woman in White by Wilkie Collins, The Shadow of the Wind by Carlos Ruiz Zafón. This is fabulous. Rebecca by Daphne du Maurier. Jane Eyre by Charlotte Bronte. This is probably the most popular Gothic novel. Well, I don't know, but I was assigned to read this in high school, and I loved it, and it's still a favorite. And then, of course, there's always Dracula by Bram Stoker. Don't you love this edition? It's illustrated by none other than Edward Gorey, and it's got cute little bats on the side. Love that. The next genre I want to talk about is mystery. I think everybody should try at least one mystery in their lifetime, and my recommendations for classics would be And Then There Were None by Agatha Christie. Honestly, you could start with any number of Agatha Christie's. There are so many great ones. Murder on the Orient Express, Death on the Nile. Edgar, I need you to not wobble the tripod. The Murder of Roger Ackroyd. These are all excellent, worthwhile mysteries. And then, of course, there's also Sherlock Holmes by Arthur Conan Doyle. This is a collection. I've got all of the Sherlock Holmes. I've got, this is all 4 of the novels, and then I also have collections of short stories. But Sherlock Holmes is great fun. Perfect thing to read on like a stormy night in winter. I don't know, there's just something very cozy about Sherlock Holmes. And then, of course, I think everybody should read a classic romance. And for this, there's really only one choice. Like, this is, I think, probably on the top of most people's list of books you've got to read before you die. And that is Pride and Prejudice by Jane Austen. Still, I think, the most satisfying romance novel that I can think of. And it's the model for so many romance novels and love stories. You know, if you think of the classic 2 people who do not like each other when they first meet, but by the end are in love with each other. This is the novel that set the standard for that model of love story, and it has definitely never been surpassed. Like, this is the best one. And Jane Austen is just such a phenomenal writer. I mean, every sentence is a banger. You can't go wrong with Pride and Prejudice. I don't think anybody has ever picked up this book and been sorry that they picked it up. That being said, I did see one time a review of it online that was hilarious, and it was like a student who'd been assigned to read it, and they said, it's just a bunch of rich people going to each other's houses. And that is accurate, but it's a very reductive take on the story. But I did think that was really funny. Because that is literally what happens. It's a bunch of rich people going to each other's houses. All right, so next, personally, I think everyone should read at least one big classic Victorian doorstopper novel. I have to put a plug for one that I think is underappreciated, and that is Wives and Daughters by Elizabeth Gaskell. She didn't quite finish this book, so there's like a chapter or 2 missing at the end, but you know, the story is wrapped up well enough for my satisfaction. So, yeah, this is a great one to read. Obviously, just about any Dickens would qualify for this as well. I don't own any Dickens, much to my shame, but I can also recommend Middlemarch by George Eliot. This is another extremely popular one. Yeah, great fat Victorian read that you can just immerse yourself in for a few weeks. Another type of sort of bucket list challenge that I have seen online with books is a read around the world challenge, where you try and read a book from every country on Earth. That seems kind of overwhelming to me, but it's one option. I would say, like, for me, I'd probably pick, a list of places that interest me, and try to read a book from each of those places. But yeah, read around the world challenges, you can find those pretty easily online. I've never attempted one, and I probably won't because it just seems like too much, but that's an option. You can also consult a website that I recommend called 5books.com. And that it's a British website, so their recommendations do skew heavily towards writers from the UK. But anyway, what they do is interview experts in particular subjects and ask them to recommend 5 books about their field. So if there's any kind of subject that you're interested in, just plug it into their search feature, and it will probably return you at least 1 or 2 interviews with people who have the expertise to recommend books about that subject, and their 5 most recommended books that you can then read. So you can just pick a topic and dive into it if you want to know more about, a particular period in history or a particular person, or I don't know, any subject that you can think of. They also have a list of their most frequently recommended books. And several of the books I've already mentioned are on that list, like War and Peace and Middlemarch are both on that list of books that have been recommended many, many times by experts on their site. I think 5 books is a really great resource if you are trying to figure out, like, there's so many books out there, where should I start? That's a great place to look. You could also do something like a daily reading challenge, and something that I intend to do someday, I haven't gotten around to it yet, is to try and read a poem every day for a year. And I have an anthology that is intended for that purpose. Like I said, I haven't gotten through it. I just pick this up occasionally to read a poem here and there, but this is a nature poem for every night of the year. So it's meant for you to put it on your bedside table, and before bed, just read a poem before going to sleep, which I think is such a lovely ritual and such a nice idea for something to do for a whole year. Another idea could be to read the complete works of a really famous writer, the sort of writer that people dedicate their whole lives and careers to in academia. Like, you could read the complete works of Shakespeare, you could read all of Proust. These are definitely bucket list worthy challenges. Dovetailing with that idea, you could just pick your favorite author. You don't have to pick someone like Proust or Shakespeare. It could be, maybe your favorite author is Stephen King and you want to read all of his complete works. It doesn't matter whether they're highbrow or lowbrow. Your bucket list books should be personal to you and what you enjoy reading. So pick your favorite author and just try and read everything that they ever wrote. For me, something that I like to do is read books from places that I travel to. I like to travel, and I almost always, when I travel, pick up a book or 2 from that place or set in that place. And I think it's really fun to essentially revisit places that I love through books that are set there. So as a couple of examples, Paul and I went a few years ago to Scotland, and I bought, while I was there, a mystery set in Inverness, where we spent a couple of days. And then a book called Wildfire at Midnight by Mary Stewart. This takes place on the Isle of Skye, which we spent a few days there as well. And I fell completely in love with the Isle of Skye. It's so beautiful there. The cover of this book does give you a little bit of a sense of how dramatic the landscapes are. Another example, we went last year in spring to New Orleans, and I bought Interview with the Vampire while I was there. Never really got into Anne Rice, but We saw her house while we were in New Orleans, and it just felt very appropriate to buy Interview with the Vampire there. I actually started reading it on one of the famous streetcars as we were just riding around the city. It's just a fun way to revisit places that you enjoyed visiting in real life. Conversely, you can make a list of books that are set in places you want to travel to. I have a few of these on my shelf, but I'll just call out this one, The Labyrinth of the Spirits by Carlos Ruiz Zafón. He also wrote The Shadow of the Wind that I mentioned earlier. They're part of the same series. He has a series called The Cemetery of Forgotten Books, and it's set in Barcelona, and they're very evocative of place, these books. And they just, honestly, these books have made me really want to visit Barcelona. Then something that I think would be really fun to do, say another summer, would be to read a really famous great classic and then read modern reworkings of that book. So one that occurs to me is to read The Odyssey, which I have certainly read before, though I don't own a copy of it currently, but I have several reworkings of it. So my ideas would be Circe, which is not exactly a retelling of the Odyssey, but it features many of the characters in the Odyssey. Odysseus, Telemachus, and Circe are basically the three main characters of this. Watership Down. Yes, it's about bunnies, but it's like also very epic in scope. And it is absolutely inspired by the Odyssey. And then I already mentioned this one, but Ulysses by James Joyce. And I'm sure there are many others. These are just the kind of retellings or reworkings of the Odyssey that I personally own. But I think that would be a fun project. It seems to be very popular these days in publishing to take a classic and retell it maybe from another character's perspective or through a different lens somehow. Like I kind of want to read David Copperfield by Dickens and then Demon Copperhead by Barbara Kingsolver. Same with Huckleberry Finn and James by Percival Everett. So you're just seeing a lot of these lately. It seems to be a bit of a trend in the literary world, and I think it's a really cool trend. So then also, kind of back to genres, although this is a very fuzzy genre, but it makes sense to me. Everybody should read at least one comfort book, maybe when they are dealing with something difficult, depression, illness, grief, whatever. Everybody should have a book or two in their back pocket to read when they are feeling down. And these are books that feel like a hug and will just boost your mood and I think renew your faith in humanity. If you're having one of those times where just like the news cycle is too much and you need something to make you feel good about human beings again, these are some of the books I would recommend. This one is very quick and you can read it in one sitting. 84 Charing Cross Road by Helene Hanff. This is the story of a long-distance friendship between two people who love books, and it is one of the most charming books you'll ever read. Highly, highly recommend. Like I said, you can read this in probably about, 2 hours, but it is pure delight. This one you want to save for a particular time of year, of course. Winter Solstice by Rosamund Pilcher. This is also happens to be set in Scotland, so I should have included it in my Scotland pile, though I did not buy it while I was in Scotland. But this is a lovely book to read in the weeks leading up to Christmas. And it's, I think, a lovely book to read even if you don't celebrate Christmas. It's about a group of people who are each in their own way kind of lost and struggling, and they come together around the winter solstice and essentially heal each other. It's a lovely, lovely story. Not quite realistic, it's really a fairy tale of sorts, but it's very sweet, very cozy, very comforting. Perfect thing to read in December. And then this is All Creatures Great and Small by James Herriot. Another book that is just pure delight from start to finish. Charming book. It will make you laugh out loud. It will make you cry. It's absolutely beautiful. Very sweet. If you're an animal lover, this is a must. You might have seen the TV series, which is good, but this is better. Absolutely, the book just has a level of charm and humor and sensitivity that cannot be captured in the TV show. You could also just pick a time period that you want to read more from, and go to the Wikipedia article for literature from that era. You could look up ancient writers, or you could look up writers of the Enlightenment, and just make a list based on whatever you find. Similarly, if you want to learn more about a particular literary style or technique or genre, you can always just go and look up that Wikipedia article, like magical realism, for example, and just skim the article and look for the books that are mentioned and make a list of those, and then just start to work your way through them. Then I know I have been sharing pretty much exclusively fiction, and I did want to include some tips for nonfiction books to put on your bucket list. I have kind of 3 different categories, I would say. One is books to guide you through a particular topic that you want to learn more about. As an example of that, I will mention Year of Wonder by Clemency Burton Hill. This is a day book. It has 365 entries, each covering one piece of classical music. So every day you can read the entry and listen to the piece of music. And by the end of the year, you will have amassed quite a store of appreciation and understanding of classical music. So that's something I want to do. I bought this book several years ago, and just like with the nature poem for every night of the year, I have just dipped in and out of it. I haven't consistently, starting on January 1st, made my way through this entire book. But I intend to. That's a bucket list item for me. You could read nonfiction about or by people who followed their bucket list dreams, or discovered their bucket list dreams, as in the case of this first person, My Life in France by Julia Child. This is a phenomenal memoir. It will make you so happy to read this, particularly if you are fond of cooking or of France. I'm fond of both, so I love this book. And Julia Child is just such a charismatic voice. She's just lovable. She didn't set out to become a world-famous authority on French cooking, but it happened. And I think studying at a place like the Cordon Bleu in Paris is certainly a bucket list thing for people who enjoy cooking. So anyway, this is a lovely book about following your dreams. And then this I just grabbed as another example, A Walk in the Woods by Bill Bryson. This is about hiking the Appalachian Trail, which I feel like is a bucket list item for many people, at least a lot of people here on the East Coast of the United States. The Appalachian Trail stretches from Georgia to Maine, and it takes months to walk it, and a lot of people do it every year. It's a popular bucket list challenge for hikers. And then this one, Beatrix Potter, A Life in Nature. I love Beatrix Potter, not just her charming children's books, but her life story is very inspiring. She's just one of those people who everything she tried to do, she was a success at, and she tried a lot of things. She was not just an amazing self-taught watercolor artist and writer of children's books, but she was also a scientist. She was also a conservationist, and she was an award-winning breeder of sheep, sort of heritage varieties. She was a visionary landowner, successful farmer, and sheep breeder. And her life is also inspiring because she overcame a devastating tragedy. Her fiancé died an untimely death before they could get married. So she lost the love of her life, but she moved on and made her life into quite a triumph. So anyway, she's another great person to look to if you need, some bucket list inspiration. And then I'm almost at the end, I promise. This is my last category, and this is, again, nonfiction, but they're items that I think of as wisdom books. If you're religious, your spiritual text of choice might be included in this list. For me, I'm not religious, but I am spiritual, and I'm also interested in philosophy and psychology and things like that. Interested in how to live the best possible life I can. So a few items that I recommend are in this category: Meditations by Marcus Aurelius. This is a famous book, especially for people who admire Stoicism as a philosophy. But I think it's a lovely personal journal about how to live a good life in a difficult world. So I think that's valuable reading for all of us today, just as valuable as it was in ancient Rome. And I just love this book. Like, it really paints a portrait of who Marcus Aurelius was as a person, not just as an emperor, because it's his diary, essentially. My favorite chapter is probably the first one, in which he outlines his gratitudes to all the people who have shaped him. And I just think it is so lovely, that he took the time to write down all the people that he's known that he owes something to. Very touching, and the book is full of wisdom. Then this is Living Beautifully with Uncertainty and Change by Pema Chodron. I don't know if that's actually how you pronounce her name, but she's a Buddhist nun, and this is a great book. I also like another book by her that is called The Wisdom of No Escape. But anyway, this, and honestly any book by Pema Chodron is great. She's a very insightful, very wise person. Another Buddhist writer I like is Thich Nhat Hanh. Recommend him as well, particularly Peace is Every Step. So yeah, just good books about how to navigate life when it's uncertain and full of change, as it always is, right? Then The Tao Te Ching by Lao Tzu. I can't say that I fully understand this book, but it is very interesting and very thought-provoking. And then last but not least, How to Think Like Leonardo da Vinci. This is basically a book about how to cultivate the skills of being a Renaissance person, which is certainly kind of an overall goal for me. That's one of my personal values, is being as well developed in every direction as I can be, which is kind of what I think of when I think of a Renaissance person. 7 Steps to Genius Every Day. Can't say that I'm a genius every day. Can't say I'm a genius any day. But this is a great book for kind of trying to improve your skills in self-development. So that's it. I know this has probably turned out to be one of my longer videos, and I had initially intended it for it to be a very short one. But hopefully that gives you some food for thought if you want to create your own bucket list and include some books on it. I hope that this has given you some ideas of what you could add to your list. This is kind of the sort of thought process I go through as I create my own reading lists. It helps to have some kind of area of focus, and I went for many, many years just sort of reading at whim, picking out whatever called to me in the bookstore, but I have found it useful as I get older, and I realize that I'm not going to be able to read everything in the world, to kind of be a little more focused and deliberate about what I choose to read. These are some of the ideas I have for lists that I want to make. I hope that this was useful to you. I hope it gave you some good ideas and inspiration. If you liked this video, please give it a thumbs up, and don't forget to hit that subscribe button. And I appreciate you so much for watching, and I wish you very happy reading until I see you again. Bye!
All right.
All right, so what do we have? Tell us what we're having, Mary.
We're having sesame, ginger, avocado oil dressing on a salad with greens, red onion, radishes, goat cheese, parsley, And here we have a ravioli lasagna.
Very nice.
And garlic bread. And for dessert is peach concoction.
Oh my gosh, there's dessert too. Paula's gonna be sorry he missed all this. Hi, Izzy. You wanna say hello to the people? The viewers? This is my dad's cat. Isn't she the cutest thing ever? What did you get again?
French toast Foster.
French toast Foster. Very nice. Looks good.